Hi, welcome back. In today's video I'm going to talk about the 10 best towns in the south of Brazil. So this includes the state of Rio Grande do Sul, Santa Catarina and Paraná. And the towns that I've included in my list have less than 100,000 inhabitants, they're safe, they've got a good economy, they've got good infrastructure, organized and just generally nice towns. Now I've just included towns that I've been to. So obviously there are many other towns that I haven't visited which are very nice, which haven't made it onto this list. And it's also worth mentioning that I did another video recently about the 10 best big cities to live in Brazil. And so if you're interested in that, I'll leave a link to that in the description below. Okay, so let's have a look at my list. Okay, so at number 10 is the town of Torres. So this is in the state of Rio Grande do Sul. It's got 42,000 inhabitants. It's located on the coast, so it's a coastal town, and it's about a 2.5 hour drive from the capital of Rio Grande do Sul, which is Porto Alegre. And Torres is quite a well-known town in the area, and that's because it's known to have the nicest beaches in Rio Grande do Sul. So the beaches in Rio Grande do Sul aren't the best. They're generally quite big and long, which means they can be quite windy. The water can be a bit cold and a bit murky from all the algae as well. So the beaches in this state aren't the best. But in Torres they are nicer, so here the water can be a bit warmer. The beaches are a bit smaller with some mountains and vegetation behind it. And as a result, lots of tourists come to this town in summertime. Torres is actually surrounded by water, so it's got the coast on one side, and then on the other side it has some lagoons. And there's actually a small lagoon in the center of the city called Lagoa do Vialão, which is very nice. And in terms of the climate for this town, because it's on the coast, the summers are hot, but not as hot as some of the towns further inland. So temperatures in general get up to like 30-35 degrees in the summertime, and in winter also doesn't get too cold, can fall to like 10 degrees Celsius, sometimes a bit lower than that. So the town has a pretty good climate. And one cool thing about this town is that it has a hot air balloon festival each year. In terms of the economy, so the GDP per capita of the town is 35,000 reais, which is a bit below the average for Brazil, which is around 53,000 reais. And the principal activity of the town is tourism. So in summertime, the population of the town increases from around 40,000 to over 500,000 inhabitants. So this happens in the period of December until February-March time. So the town is heavily focused on tourism with lots of hotels and restaurants and so on. Now this explosion of the population of the town in summertime does bring some problems to the town. So the infrastructure of the town comes under a lot of pressure, and there can be some problems with crime and some antisocial behavior during these summer months. And also because this is a tourist town, the price of properties as well isn't the cheapest. Okay, so at number 9 is the town of São Joaquim. So this is a town of about 25,000 inhabitants, and it's in the state of Santa Catarina. So this town is located further inland, away from the coast, and it's about a 4-hour drive from this town to Florianópolis, the capital of Santa Catarina. And also it's in the Serra, the mountain region of Santa Catarina, so it's at a very high altitude, so it's 1,300 meters above sea level. And because of this, the climate can be a bit cold. So in summertime the temperatures can go up to like 25 degrees, more or less. And in wintertime the temperatures can fall down to 0 degrees or even negative numbers. And they call it one of the coldest towns in Brazil. Now there are a couple of towns in Santa Catarina all fighting for the title of being the coldest town in Brazil. So you've got Urubici, Urupema, and São Joaquim is also one of these. And it's a very nice town surrounded by lots of mountains and forests, lots of waterfalls as well. One of the main attractions of the town is Belvedere, which is just outside the town, and you can go up there and you get a really nice view of the town and the surrounding area. And then there are lots of parks as well. One of the famous ones is Parque Nacional de Maçã, so the National Apple Park, which has lots of nature and apple orchard as well, because this town produces a lot of apples. And then there are lots of waterfalls as well nearby. The most famous one is Cascata de Pirata, which is very nice. In terms of the economy, the GDP per capita is 45,000 reais. And the principal activities are agriculture, in particular apples, and also tourism, because a lot of Brazilians travel here in order to experience the cold and hoping that they see snow, which happens now and again. In terms of house prices and living here, they're pretty reasonable and definitely a lot lower than Florianopolis and other towns which are near the coast. Okay, and number 8 is the town of União da Vitória. So this is in the state of Paraná. It's got about 55,000 inhabitants. And it's about a 3.5-hour drive from the capital of Paraná, Curitiba, and it's very close to the border with Santa Catarina. And the state border actually runs through the city, so half the city is in the state of Paraná, and the other half, called Porto União, is in the state of Santa Catarina. And this town is also fairly high up, so the altitude is 760 meters above sea level, and it's surrounded by lots of mountains and forests and rivers and waterfalls as well. And there's actually a river running through the town called Rio Iguaçu, which makes the town very picturesque. And another big attraction to the town is a very big statue of Jesus Christ. So it's called the Imagem de Sagrado Coração de Jesus, and it's 27 meters high, located just outside the town, up in the mountains. And in terms of the climate, because it's so high up, the temperatures in summertime aren't that extreme, so they can go up to like 25 degrees, maybe 30, and in winter it can get pretty cold, so it can go down to 0 or even negative numbers, and it can be lots of frost in winter time. And in terms of economy, the GDP per capita is 33,000 reais, which is relatively low, and the principal activity is agriculture, so beef, dairy, poultry, and also crops as well, so maize and soya. And in terms of property prices, they're very reasonable here. Okay, so at number 7 is Ijui. So this is a town in the countryside in Rio Grande do Sul, so it's got about 84,000 inhabitants, and it's about a 5.5-hour drive from the capital Porto Alegre. And this town is a mix of cultures. So it received a lot of immigrants from various countries in Europe, which includes the usual ones, so Portugal, Italy and Germany, but also other ones, so Poland, Sweden, Holland, Ukraine, Russia. So the culture of the town is a real mix. And I was very surprised there are some people who speak Swedish in this town. And it's a very nice town. It's got lots of parks. So it's got Parque de Fonte Ijuí, Parque de Pedreira, Praça da República. And then just north of the town we've got Rio Ijui, which is very nice, and you've got lots of waterfalls as well. And in particular I liked Cascata Usina Velha and Cascata das Andorinhas. But in terms of the climate of the town, so the altitude's about 300 meters, so it's a bit high up but not as high as some of the other towns I mentioned earlier. So in summertime it can get pretty hot, 30-35 degrees Celsius, and in wintertime it can fall to like 5 or 10 degrees Celsius. Now in terms of economy, the GDP per capita is 61,000 reais, so it's relatively high. And the principal activity is agriculture, so in particular soya, wheat, maize, dairy and beef. But it's also got a fairly big manufacturing industry as well, in particular machines and also the food industry. In terms of living here and the price of housing, the prices are very reasonable. Okay, number 6 is the town of Concórdia. So this is in the state of Santa Catarina. It's got about 80,000 inhabitants, and it's situated in the western part of Santa Catarina, away from the coast. So it's quite far away from Florianopolis. It takes over 7 hours to drive to Florianopolis, but it is quite close to some other big cities, in particular Chapecó, which is just an hour-and-a-half drive away. And it's a very beautiful town surrounded by mountains and forests and rivers and waterfalls. So there's a big nature reserve near the town, which is called the Fritz Plauman State Park, which has over 700 hectares of woodland and nature. And also close to the town is a river called Rio Uruguai, which is also very nice. In terms of climate, the town is about 550 meters above sea level, which means temperatures range around 30 degrees Celsius in summertime and then can fall to around 5 degrees Celsius in winter. And in terms of the economy, so the GDP per capita is 60,000 reais, which is relatively high, and the principal activity is agriculture, in particular poultry and pork. And there's some big businesses in the town as well, in particular one called Sadia, which is a big national food company. So it's a fairly wealthy town, and in terms of prices of properties, they're quite reasonable here. Okay, so the 5th best town in the south of Brazil is Francisco Beltrão. So this is in the state of Paraná. It's got a population around 97,000 inhabitants. It's located in the countryside away from the coast. And it takes about 7 hours to drive from this town to Curitiba, the capital of Paraná. And this town is actually quite close to the border with Argentina, so you can see how far west this town is. It's a very nice town. There's some big parks, in particular Parque Alvorada, and there's also a river running through the town called Rio Marecas, which is very pretty. And also this town is pretty famous because of a fair called Expo Bell. So this is a very big fair. It's focused a lot on agriculture, so lots of big agricultural companies exhibit their products here, but it also focuses on other things, and it has some big concerts as well with lots of live music. In terms of economy, the GDP per capita is about 40,000 reais, and the principal activity is agriculture, particularly poultry, but also manufacturing, which includes metal and textile. And in terms of house prices, again, they are very reasonable here compared to the rest of the state. Okay, number 4 is the town of Timbó. So this has 46,000 inhabitants, and it's in the state of Santa Catarina. And the culture of the town is heavily influenced by German immigrants. And it's about a 3-hour drive from Florianópolis, but it's close to another big town called Blumenau, which is just a 40-minute drive away. And also it's not too far away from the coast, so it takes between an hour and 2 hours to drive to the coast and some nice beaches. And the town is surrounded by some nice forests and rivers. And also a river runs through the city called Rio Benedito. And there's lots of parks in the town as well, so Parque Central, there's Morro Azul, Jardim Botânico, and the culture of this town is heavily influenced by the German immigrants that settled here. And you can see that in the architecture of the buildings, and it also has a big annual party which is called Festa do Imigrante, which celebrates this German culture of the town. In terms of the economy, so GDP per capita is 40,000 reais. And the principal activities are agriculture, but also has a very strong manufacturing industry, in particular machinery and textiles. Now the prices of the properties here they're a bit higher because now we're getting a bit closer to the coast. So here you're having to pay a bit more in order to buy a property, but still it's nothing compared to Florianópolis or the other towns on the actual coast. Okay, and number 3, the 3rd best town is Imbituba. So this is a coastal town in Santa Catarina. It's got 53,000 inhabitants. It's just an hour and a half drive from Florianópolis. And it's got lots of beautiful beaches, lagoons, sand dunes and forests. And I would say the most famous beach area in Imbituba is Praia da Rosa, which is very, very nice. And it's been named one of the 30 most beautiful beaches in the world. But there's lots of other really nice beaches. One that I particularly like is Praia da Vila as well, which is also very beautiful. And also the town is surrounded by water on the other side as well, so it's got a very nice lagoon. It's called Lagoa Imarui. So the whole area is very, very nice. And also surfers really like this area because of the waves as well. And they actually held the World Championship of Surfing here for many years. And the climate of the town is pretty good, so in summertime it's 30-35 degrees, and wintertime it falls to like 10 degrees Celsius. And the economy of the town is pretty strong, so GDP per capita is 54,000 reais. And the principal activities are tourism, so this area gets very, very busy in summertime. And also this area has a port, so the port of Imbituba, which is a big part of the economy as well. Okay, so number 2, the 2nd best town in the south of Brazil is Gramado and Canela. So I'm actually combining 2 towns here because they're very close to each other. So these 2 towns are in the Serra, so the mountains in Rio Grande do Sul. And towns are about a 2-hour drive from the capital Porto Alegre. And the towns are surrounded by very beautiful scenery, lots of valleys and mountains and forests and waterfalls as well. The towns are very influenced by the Italian and German immigrants as well, and you can see that on the architecture of the buildings. And lots of attractions in this town. There's lots of museums, parks, there's an indoor ski slope and vineyards and lots of restaurants and hotels as well. So there's lots of tourist attractions here. And also these towns invest a lot in decorating the towns, in particular in Christmas and Easter. So towns are full of decorations during this time, and that's also a big attraction for the tourists. So in terms of climate, so this town is over 800 meters. So temperatures in summers around 30 degrees Celsius, and in wintertime it can fall down to 0 degrees. There can be some frost, and now and again it has snowed here. So lots of Brazilians come to these towns to experience the cold and go and see all these attractions. And every year these towns receive close to 10 million visitors each year. So tourism is definitely the principal activity of the town, and it's quite wealthy as well. So GDP per capita is 72,000. But because these two towns are touristy towns, the property prices are pretty high. I mean, in Gramado the prices are very high. In Canela they're a bit lower, but still very high compared to the rest of the region. Okay, and then number one, the best town in the south of Brazil is Pomerode. So this has got about 34,000 inhabitants. So it's located in the countryside in Santa Catarina, very close to Timbó, which I mentioned earlier. It's about a 3-hour drive from Florianopolis and between a 1 and 2 hour drive from the coast. And just like Timbó, the culture of the town is influenced a lot by the German immigrants that settled here. And actually it's been named the most German town in Brazil. So it's a very nice and safe town with lots of nature around it, so forest and waterfalls. It has lots of museums, amusement parks, the big one being Alice Park, which has an indoor snow area so people can experience a bit of snow. And also it's pretty famous for its parties as well, so Festa Pomerana, which is a big party celebrating its German culture. And it's got lots of restaurants serving traditional German food. In terms of climate, it's very similar to Timbó, so it can get very hot in summer times, up to 40 degrees, and in winter it can fall to like 5 or 10 degrees. In terms of economy, the GDP is very high, so GDP per capita is 81,000 reais, and the principal activity is tourism, so lots of people want to come here to visit the most German town in Brazil. But it also has a strong manufacturing industry, and also in particular textile, metal and machinery. In terms of property prices, they're a bit higher here because it is a bit of a touristy town. It's got a reputation of being quite a nice town, and also it's not too far away from the coast as well, which means they have to pay a bit of a premium here. Okay, so that's my list of the 10 best towns in the south of Brazil. I mean, it's very difficult to choose the 10 best towns. There are many that I left out, which I really like as well. And also, like I said, there are many towns that I haven't been to as well, which I'm sure are very, very nice. So let me know in the commentary if you agree with me, or which other towns I should have included. So please leave a like, subscribe. If you've got any questions or anything, leave them in the commentary below. So thanks for watching, until next time.